Okay, welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Grover Norquist. I serve as president of Americans for Tax Reform. And welcome to the 2008 debate between the 6 candidates for the chairmanship of the Republican National Committee. Now, the chairman and co-chairman of the Republican National Committee are elected every 2 years by the 168-member Republican National Committee. Each state sends one chairman and a committeeman and woman, also represented in the vote is the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, Guam, the Virgin Islands, American Samoa, and the Northern Marianas Islands. You may be wondering how you possibly missed the Republican chairman's debate 2 years, 4 years ago, and the answer was there wasn't one then. When we have a Republican president, the RNC tends to vote for the candidate that the president instructs them to. We saw the Democrat Party's version of this when we read in the newspapers today that Tim Kaine, the tax-increasing governor of Virginia, has been selected to run the Democratic Party. There was no messy election, no campaign, no choice, sort of like card check for politics. But this year, as in 1993, the Republican National Committee members, many of whom are with us today, will be voting on January 28th to elect a chairman for the next 2 years. And today's debate is the first public televised debate in the history of the Republic for the chairmanship of the RNC. So everybody here is part of a historic first. And for the last month, we've been asking Americans to submit questions at the website that was set up for this, rncdebate.org. We had thousands of people participate. I particularly want to thank some of the blogs that were very active in asking people to participate in forming the questions for this debate. Rebuild the Party, Red State, Town Hall, Ron Paul's Campaign for Liberty, the College Republican National Committee, and again, we had thousands participate and vote on what questions they particularly like. Now, for today's debate, we're going to open with a 2-minute self-introduction by each candidate, and at the end, there'll be a closing 1-minute summation for each of the candidates. The questions will be addressed to each of the candidates. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond, and Katie, has a yellow 15-second notice and a red "it is really time to move on" statement. I want to get in as many questions as we can, so if we can do as well as we can to keep to the 1 minute. The 1-minute questions will be punctuated by some lightning round questions that simply ask for yes or no or a 1-word or 1-sentence response. Lastly, the candidates will not be directly questioning each other. If a candidate is criticized, he will be given 30 seconds to respond, and we will move on. For purposes of fairness, and particularly for time, I would ask that people withhold applause until the summation statements at the end, in which case everyone can go crazy. I would like to start by asking Mr. Steele. And then we're going to go left to right on each of the questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Grover. Thank you very much for bringing us all together, and certainly thank all of you for coming out. I'm Michael Steele. I'm the current GOPAC chairman and former lieutenant governor of Maryland. And I'd like to extend a welcome to my colleagues and friends who are vying for this office of chairmanship. It says a lot about where our party is right now to have this collection of individuals to step up and to step into the fray. It's not the easiest thing in the world right now to be a Republican, as you probably know. So we're here to prove that it is. So all that noise about this party dying or is at death's door, bunk. Don't believe it. We're alive, we're well, we're conservative, we're strong, and we're moving forward with your help and support. This is about grassroots. I grew up here in Washington, D.C., knocking doors and licking stamps. Wound up moving into Maryland when I got married and got involved with the party there. Again, knocking on doors and licking stamps. Became county chairman, grew to vice chairman of the state party, and ultimately state party chairman. And then from there was elected to lieutenant governorship. I have a very good sense of the dynamics of the red and blue state conundrum. Certainly for a lot of Republicans right now, we've not done well in the East. We're beginning to show signs of weakness in the South. We have a lot of strength still in the West, in the Midwest rather, but we're also got opportunities in the West that we should be looking at. Total package for us is, how do we take this party after two very devastating losses in 06 and 08 and turn ourselves around? Well, I'm here today to tell all of you that the glass is half full. The values that we hold, the things that keep us together as Republicans, that have made us strong in the past, will make us strong in the future. We just need to learn how to talk to people a little bit better than we have. We need to stay committed to those values that draw us together and keep us strong as a party. And certainly that's something I learned from my very early days of working at the grassroots, is that's where it begins and that's ultimately where it ends. And if we don't do right by the grassroots, we will do wrong. Trust me. Thank you.
Thank you, Grover. I'm Caton Dawson. I'm the current chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party. And first of all, I want to thank my co-chair panelists here. And especially, I'm a member of the Republican National Committee and want to thank our fellow members who are here today, who traveled long and far to be here. I just want to take this opportunity to share a story with you. Not too long ago, and we had a Democrat governor, a Democratic Party was in charge. They had raised untold millions of dollars. We had a Republican Party that was in disarray. We had lost our credibility with the voters. And to make matters worse, we were losing elections. Well, you would think I was talking about November 2008. What I was really talking about was South Carolina in May 2002 when I was elected the chairman of the Republican Party. On my first day in the office, I came in and found out that we were $300,000 in debt with a $160,000 FEC fine facing us. And my day got a little worse as the power company was taking the meter off the building for non-payment. That's when I had a question of exactly what have I done to myself. My day got a little better because the individual walked in who was a West Point graduate with a political science degree and applied for a job. He had just finished his service as a captain in the United States Army and wanted to work for the Republican Party, and I hired him as our political director. And Ron, I think you're here today. Ron Thomas? Ron right there. Ron, thank you for your service to our country and our party. Ron and I traveled thousands of miles and raised millions of dollars for the Republican Party. And we did it off of the values of the conservative Republicans. We recruited candidates, and we started winning in South Carolina. We won because we stuck to a conservative message, one that the voters, and not just the Democrat and Republicans, but that the people heard. And at the end of the day, we elected. While we held the Democrats accountable at every turn, we elected Governor Mark Sanford, 2 United States Senators in Jim DeMint and Lindsey Graham, 8 out of 9 statewide offices, elected the first ever African American to serve on the Republican National Committee, and on and on and on. So winning is possible. I'm glad to be here today, and thank you.
Thank you, Grover, for convening this very important forum. For 232 years, America has been a beacon of freedom and democracy. For 155 of those years, the Republican Party has been the champion of individual freedom, limited government, and a strong defense. I believe the most important job of the next RNC chairman is to reinvigorate our base. I believe I have a plan, an action plan that will do just that. It is a base of a plan that grows out of my experience for over 30 years as a conservative activist, thinker, and public office holder. One of the most important things that we have to engage in almost immediately is redistricting. I was tapped in 2000 to be the chairman of the U.S. Census Monitoring Board. We got that job done. We beat back the Democrats in their attempts to use statistical sampling. I traveled all 50 states, worked with all 50 parties to get the job done. Ladies and gentlemen, I know how to win elections. I've won 13 out of 17 times my name has been on the ballot. I know that I've won more elections than perhaps anyone on this stage, with the exception of Chairman Dawson. We all know how difficult it is to win elections in that swing state of South Carolina. I know how to win. I know how to win elections. I'm ready to put us back on a path of freedom and dignity and principle. I'm the conservative that is asking for your vote. I'm ready to lead a grassroots revolution.
Ready? My name is Saul Anuzis, and I'm truly humbled to be here with my colleagues running for the RNC chairmanship. My family immigrated here from Lithuania, and I grew up in the city of Detroit in a working-class neighborhood and didn't learn to speak English until I was about 7 years old. My family found the American dream in an auto factory in the city of Detroit. I helped pay my way through college, loading trucks, and became a Teamster. I've worked in campaigns from the precinct level to running for township office, state office, and on hundreds of campaigns over the last 25 years. I think that, I bring a unique set of skills to this. There goes my microphone. Going in and out. Sorry about that. And I'm a father. I'm a husband, a father of four. I am currently the chairman of the Michigan Republican Party. And I think, to paraphrase what Ronald Reagan said, I don't think there's any easy answer. There are simple ones. I think until the Republican Party returns that makes it tough in and out. The principles that matter, we're not going to win. And I think until we actually start articulating those principles and stop being hypocritical ourselves, that we as a party will not be victorious. So as a chairman of the Michigan Republican Party, as somebody who has fought in a blue state that can go red under certain circumstances, who understands what it takes to win in the swing states around this country, I am running for chairman of the National Committee, and I ask for your humble support. Thank you.
Chip. My name is Chip Saltzman. I'm the former chairman of the state of Tennessee. Also worked with Senator Bill Frist and Lamar Alexander over the years, and recently was Governor Mike Huckabee's campaign manager. And in each instance that I've been involved in the Republican Party, I've always been involved in an election that they said they couldn't be done. When I was elected chairman in Tennessee, I was 30 years old. We had the Vice President of the United States on the ballot running for President of the United States, a guy named Al Gore. Nobody gave us a chance to win. Nobody wanted to help us, but we went to work because we knew Al Gore the best and that we could win in Tennessee. And ultimately, we won in Tennessee. And it had some effect on the national election because if Al Gore wins his home state, he's President of the United States, and Florida doesn't matter. Instantly after that, my mentor, boss, and somebody I was incredibly close to, Don Sundquist, who was governor of the state of Tennessee, who just got reelected with 70% of the vote, decided the state of Tennessee needed a state income tax. And as Republicans, we don't think state income taxes are the answers to the problems. And we went to war with the governor. We stood on principle. We stood on policy. And we beat back the state income tax, and today Tennessee is still a state without a state income tax. And then Senator Frist asked me to come to Washington to work with him on something that, again, nobody said could be done, which is get control of the United States Senate in the midterm election of the president. We went to work. We raised $130 million. We put those dollars to work, led on the target. And in 2002, we did something again that nobody said could be done, which is win elections in an election cycle that they said we couldn't. I've always been involved in elections, and especially in the Mike Huckabee campaign for president. Everybody thought I was crazy to go to work for that governor of Arkansas because he had no chance. But I knew that he was a man that needed to be part of the conversation to be successful in our party. And I know for us to be successful, we need many voices. We need voices not just on stage and out of Washington. We need those voices from the states. It's principle, it's policy, and it's people. And we put those together, we win. And so I'm humbled to be on stage with everybody. I ask for your support and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Mike Duncan.
Grover, thank you. And I'd like to thank C-SPAN for covering us today, for the people that are streaming this live on the web today, for the members of the RNC that are in the audience, and all of you that are interested in the Republican Party. I'm Mike Duncan, and I'm the incumbent chairman. I'm here in two roles today. One, as the incumbent chairman, and two, as a candidate who will bring significant change to the Republican Party. The last time I was on this stage was the day after the election with Chairman Dean. It was a very bitter day for me to stand up there and talk about why we had lost the election. But today I'm here to tell you that I'm proud of many of the accomplishments that we had in that campaign. We had millions of people all over the country working. We raised over $400 million in the last 2 years, 1.9 million donors, 1 million more donors than we had 8 years ago, 900,000 more donors, new donors this time. We did have accomplishments. We did have accomplishments for the Republican Party. But we've got to change. And I'm here today as a candidate to tell you that I'm proud of having been chairman In my family, loyalty is not a vice. I worked very hard for George Bush, just as all of the people on this stage did. But it's time to move forward, and I have a plan for that. I hope you'll join me. Those of you that are at home can go to mikeforchairman.com and look at my plan, my 10-point plan for the Republican Party, how we move forward, the things that we have to do, beginning with the members of the RNC, making sure that we are a bottom-up organization, making sure that we have many voices all over this country articulating the policy, the conservative views of the Republican Party, lower taxes, less government, individual responsibility, and a strong national defense. That's why I'm very proud to be here today as a candidate, and I'm asking you to join me in that journey to rebuild the Republican Party of America.
Thank you. The most commonly asked question in many different ways was asked by Sean Eric Karich, beats Brian B. and John Fleischman, was voted many thousands of times to be asked, so we put it first, and that is the Republican Party is the party of limited government. We have, in this last decade, elected a Republican president, a Republican House, and a Republican Senate, and yet we presided over an ever-growing federal government with new programs and more spending. What should and can the Republican National Committee do to assure donors to the party and activists and voters that it is taking steps to ensure that our next majority will enact those policies as outlined in the national platform? Kate and Dawson.
We're going to have to continue to hold the Democrats accountable at every turn, and the Democratic administration. Limited freedom and the principles of our party is what Republicans, all of us, that unites us. I think that we're in some challenges now and some very difficult times, but with those and a little chaos inside a party, it always creates a lot of opportunities. So I would say holding them accountable at every turn is what our responsibility will be as activists, as leaders in our states, especially members of the Republican National Committee, now have a new role.
Ken.
One of our greatest problems is that too many of our candidates campaign like Jimmy Carter and then govern like Jimmy Carter, while a lot of our other candidates campaign like Ronald Reagan and then govern like Jimmy Carter. The issue here is that the Republican Party must stand for something. That's why I think we have to reinvigorate the base and push power, responsibility, and resources back to state and county parties. It is only when you decentralize power, sort of flatten the structure of responsibility and resources inside the Beltway and push it back out to the folks that you get serious accountability at the local level. We must abandon the 28-state strategy that has been in play for the last presidential cycles. That's the only way that we're going to get grassroots accountability once again.
Saul.
Well, I think we shouldn't be afraid to hold our elected officials accountable. I'll use Michigan as an example. In the last election, we passed a largest tax increase in Michigan's history. And unfortunately, they tried to cut a deal with the Democrats and the Republicans to have a bipartisan vote. And the Michigan Republicans and activists across the state stood up and fought that fight. And we not only took out ads, we ran ads and radio commercials in various members' districts. The state committee unanimously voted to hold those members accountable and encourage them to vote against the tax increase. And in the end, even though the largest tax increase in Michigan's history did pass, it passed with virtually every Democrat voting, and unfortunately one or two Republicans voting with them. And we held basically and reestablished our brand as a party, being a brand against taxes. So I think you can hold members accountable. I think you shouldn't be afraid as a party to stand up and talk about some of the fundamental principles that are ours, particularly those that are part of the platform.
Chip.
It's important to make sure we elect people that know who they are and what they believe. A lot of problems in Washington is people come to Washington as rat killers, and a couple of years later they're rodent control officers and the rats are their constituents. What we must do is when we're not only recruiting candidates and when we're electing those folks is, again, people, politics, and policy and principle, to make sure they know who they are. So in the tough times, it's easy to be a Republican when you've got a president with 65 or 70% approval rating or a governor with 70% approval rating. What we've got to make sure is we elect people across this country, not only at the federal level but at the state level, that know who they are, that'll stand up to the tough times, just like the folks have done in Florida where they're sitting with a budget deficit like they are in many states, but they've decided today not to raise taxes, but rather to go after spending restraints. Those are the kind of legislators that we need to celebrate and make sure that everybody in the country knows that in the tough times is when you earn your stripes as a Republican and a conservative, not the easy times.
Mike.
I agree with much that's been said so far. I do want to comment on what Ken said about the 28-state strategy. I totally agree, and my Project 2010 calls for victory directors in every state starting in February immediately to build the party up. We've got to do that. But you know, the responsibility lies with all of us. It lies with us at the precinct level. I'm still a precinct captain in the Upper Inez precinct in Martin County, Kentucky. It's my responsibility to recruit candidates and support candidates that believe in the Republican philosophy, and I'll continue doing that. We as members of the National Committee have the same responsibility. We have a Rule 11 that says unless the 3 members from the National Committee agree to support a candidate in the primary, the RNC won't do that. I will continue to honor that and make sure that we hold members of Congress and other elected officials accountable.
The key thing for me is know your place, understand your role. And we as a party have to appreciate that we serve a very important role with respect to legislators around the country in their various states, as well as to the federal legislature. And I think it's important to begin to impress upon the leadership here in Washington and our state capitals that our parties, our state parties, and our national party will be a partner with them at the table. We want to build that relationship to avoid the problems that we've seen in the past. It begins by having a relationship with the very people you're trying to influence so they can appreciate where you're coming from. A lot of our legislators have gotten elected outside the party. So there is no tie-in to them. There's no buy-in to the political apparatus of the GOP when it comes to those issues that are important to our base and our core. So one of the fundamental things is to impress upon the national psyche as well as the state-by-state appreciation for our relationship with the state legislators so that we can begin to check some of that bad acting that we see out there when it comes to some bills.
Excellent. Second question is first put forward by Charlie Smith, who is the chairman of College Republicans. While many people in the party have spoken about the importance of young voters, few have offered concrete plans on how to work within the RNC to attract young voters back to our party. What specifically would you do to make the Republican Party a more attractive option for voters 18 to 29 years old? And please include any ideas you have for specific programs, policy initiatives, or organizational restructuring you would commit to as an RNC chairman. Ken Blackwell?
Very good question, and let me start off by thanking Charlie for the fine work that he does in leading the College Republican National Committee. We have to bring that committee back into our structure. It is so very important. I was the youngest mayor in Cincinnati's history. I know that what we have to do, and I will borrow from rebuildtheparty.com, we have to implement the 40 under 40 strategy. That means that 40% of our new candidates at the state and local and federal level should be young people under the age of 40. We must grow the party into the future, and the way that we do it is by including young folks at the policy level, the organizational level, and the service level at every level of government.
Saul.
Yes, I think this was a huge problem for us and something that we have to address very specifically. I would, number one, make sure that the young Republicans, college Republicans, and teenage Republicans have a seat at the table, and that we support the programs that are necessary to get these young people involved and make a difference. If you take a look at the votes and how many we lost today, I mean, particularly in high school, I think it was Junior Achievement did a poll and said 70% of the kids in high school today want to be entrepreneurs, want to start their own business. I think the Opportunity Society, the idea that we are a party for free markets and free minds and allow them to actually participate in this economy is a way that we can philosophically address these people. If you take a look at the things somebody like a Newt Gingrich can do and the crowds he draws, these young people care about philosophy, they care about principles, and they care about what matters. And so I would argue that, A, you have to make sure everybody's at the table. B, you have to talk about the philosophies and not be afraid to get these kids involved at the very earliest levels.
Chip.
I think one of the things is when we talk to voters, however old they are, 18 to 29 or even all the way up to 40, which I am, is to make sure that we don't use the words that just drive me crazy, which is, "You are the future of this party." And I've told every college Republican and young Republican group I've talked to over the many years, I said, if anybody comes to your group and says, we need you because you're the future of the party, throw them out the door and slam it behind them. They are not the future of the party. They are the heart and soul of this party absolutely today. They are involved in every campaign we run. They are the people that do most of the work. They are the people that provide a lot of the energy. And they are the people that we should hold up and value and to make sure that they know if we're going to be successful as a party. That's the generation that happens. When I got excited about being Republican, I was in high school. Ronald Reagan was president. And he got me excited not only to be Republican, but we knew that we were the shining city on the hill. We knew we were that country that could make a difference for the entire world. And that happened when I was in high school. And if we're going to be true leaders of our party, we need to make sure that we inspire all people across all age groups to let them know that we are a great country and we can be and we will be as long as we get everybody included.
Mike Duncan.
Thank you very much. The three things that I would do. The first thing is to make sure that we attract young people with ideas, and that's why I've proposed the Center for Republican Renewal. We've got to take the best ideas from all over the country and translate those into terms that people understand, particularly young people. We have to do that through technology, the second thing. We have to do it on the home pages. We have to do it in the Facebook, with the Twittering, the different technology that young people are using today. The third thing is having role models, having people like Aaron Schock, our 27-year-old congressman from Illinois, as an example of you can do this, and encouraging young people to run. I disagree. I wouldn't put a quota 40 on 40, but I would encourage and support young people at every possible level in government. And finally, one of the things that I've done is to bring an action against the Bipartisan Campaign Finance Reform Act, because that's what's keeping us from funding the college Republicans, young Republicans, Women Federation, and affiliate groups that we did in the past. We've got to strike that law down.
Michael.
I think everything that you've heard here makes sense and it sounds good. The question is, why haven't we done it? And I think it's time that we recognize that the Democrats have had a strategy in place for a significant amount of time in which they've bested us because they communicate where it matters, and that's in the neighborhoods and in the communities. We're talking about a national footprint. I'm talking about something that's in your backyard. If you want to have a face-to-face with young people, then have a face-to-face with young people. You need to be on the college campuses. You need to help them organize. You need to be in their neighborhoods and in their communities, speaking directly in their language on the issues that are important to them. You cannot look at this from a global perspective. It has to be personal, one-on-one, because that's how they generally communicate. So we can Twitter, we can YouTube, all you want to, but unless you're putting in some good FaceTime and you're actually raising up the leadership from the ground up, not just sticking them on the committee and saying, gee, look who we got, like we do with black folks and a whole lot of other folks around here. We actually put them in the game and let them play the game. That's when you'll start to attract folks.
Caton. Caton.
Thank you. As a guy who was a member of all those groups, who got pushed around in a Democratic state, unlike Mr. Blackwell, who thinks winning's easy in our state, it's hard. And being a young Republican is not easy. But it comes from what Chip said and some others said, inspiring candidates. What they missed is how we, as a committee, 168 members, recruit candidates. I was inspired as a college graduate by a fellow who walked in the room by the name of Ronald Reagan. It didn't matter that he was 60-some-odd years old. The youth came out everywhere and voted across lines. So did a lot of other people. And it's the value of our candidates, how we recruit them, and how we energize it. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to change the music in the Republican Party. We've got to put the young people on the ground. They're available, but again, it's back to the experiences that this panel has, of whether you've been elected official or whether you've been somebody who has elected them. And it comes from the quality and the value of the people we put on the ground. And that's what we as a committee will concentrate on.
Okay, Twittering was mentioned. If you're Twittering, it's #RNC Debate, #RNC Debate. We have a lightning round here. We're going to start with Saul and go around with who is your favorite Republican president?
Ronald Reagan. Easy one.
Reagan.
Reagan, of course.
Reagan.
Reagan.
Reagan. He brought me into the Republican Party.
Okay, everybody got that one right? Who is your least favorite Republican president? Chip.
Don't have one. The worst Republican president beats the best Democrat president any time.
Okay.
Warren G. Harding is someone that I would not want to emulate or have the country emulate.
I would stand with Chip. I've seen enough division in my lifetime. If you got a Republican in the White House, just help the brother out, work with him, and get him where you need him to be.
It's safe to go with the dead ones.
And we've got a few of those in the party right now. But at the end of the day, you're right. I'll take a Republican any day over a Democratic president, and I think it's up to us to make sure we hold them all accountable.
Ken.
Hoover, because he opened the door to big government activism, and I think that, unfortunately, President Bush in the last few months has opened up the door to Mr. Obama's big government
Saul.
activism.
Yeah, I'd agree. I really don't have one.
Okay. This question from the Obama incoming administration. We start with Mike Duncan. How many guns do you own?
4 handguns and 2 rifles.
Michael.
None.
Too many to count.
7, and I'm good.
Saul.
2, but they wouldn't let me carry in Washington, D.C.
Chip.
In my closet at home, I've got 2 12 gauges, a 20 gauge, 3 handguns, and a 30-06, and I'll take you on any time, kids.
Okay. For the third and fourth question, I'm going to ask Patrick Ruffini and Mindy Finn, the co-founders of Rebuild the Party, to come up and join me to ask the question. Quickly. Mindy, you first. Sure.
Thanks, Grover. Thanks, candidates. Again, I'm from Rebuild the Party. It's been mentioned a few times here today. Rebuild the Party was a 10-point plan launched 2 days after the November election that focuses on reviving the party when it comes to new media and technology, our grassroots structure, the way we message, and the way that we recruit candidates and the type of candidates that we recruit. 5 out of 6 of the candidates on the stage have endorsed the plan, and all have adopted at least some tenet of the plan in their blueprints. The question we have is, what aspect of the 10-point plan or what it's about do you think is most important and why? And what specific structural changes would you make to the RNC related to new media technology?
Sure.
A couple different things I liked about your plan. One that truly got me excited is we have to open the door to open box solutions as we reach out to technology. I think the magic of the Obama campaign was that they had open box solutions that allowed developers all over the country to get involved and come up with their own ideas that work better in their neighborhoods and their opportunities, and that's how we're successful. We can't run this thing out of Washington, D.C. It cannot be closed. We've got to have a two-way communication, and I think that's where you hit better than anything. I think right now for some people in our party, technology is how many email addresses you have so they can email talking points and press releases out, and that's one-way communication, and if we're going to be successful, we have to open it up to two-way communication, so that's what I'm most excited about in your plan.
Well, I think I enjoyed meeting with you and talking about this, and recently I enjoyed reading the article where Patrick talks about we don't have to have the dichotomy between messaging and the tools that we use, and I totally agree with that. I think one way that we get there is more open sourcing, and one of the commitments that I have in my second term as RNC chairman is to open up Voter Vault and our different applications so that we can have other people with bright ideas out there help us make better use of the technology that we currently have. And I thank you for helping me come to that conclusion. Secondly, we've got to get our candidates using the technology. We have a lot available. We have the tools available at the RNC, but we've got to have these political consultants willing to put the money in the campaign budgets to spend it to make the difference. We did that in Georgia with Saxby-Chambliss. We sent 79 million different ad impressions to 600,000 Republicans. It made a huge difference. Other candidates can do the same.
What the chairman just spoke of is just one instance at one time when you've got a national campaign underway and you have the pressure of competing interests. The party at the national level has to be prepared to step in and help those states that are not sufficiently organized. This is a state-by-state situation where you have to examine the ability to reach the voters on the ground. Our campaigns are going to be our BlackBerries in the future. That's where they're going to be run from. So you've got to be able to get the format in place, the platforms in place to do that. The state party has the ultimate responsibility to make sure that they're empowered to get on the ground and into those neighborhoods. And the RNC, in my view, has the responsibility to make sure that those resources are made available, pooling together those resources, branding as much of the population as you can and identify them and give them the tools, and those that need the help, be there for them. It's great to do it in one instance, but doing it over a 50-state strategy at the height of a presidential or national election is very tough. You've got to be smart and quick about it on the front end, not on the back end.
Thank you. Certainly, everybody brings something different to it, and I'm speaking to the 168 members of the National Committee. I was the one who didn't sign the plan. I agree with everything in it except the parameters it had that bound us financially and by quotas in the Republican National Committee of who we recruited for candidates. What excited me about the plan was the fact that we want to put candidates in all 435 congressional districts and focus on the 3,141 counties in America. And the only way we're going to do that as a Republican Party is with the new technology and embrace what we have. But I would caution you, what we'll be using in 2012 is being invented right now. So we as a party are going to have to be flexible and not rigid. Our state parties will embrace it and move forward. But again, it's a grassroots party. That's what brought us to success, and that's what will bring us back to victory.
There's an old saying in budgeting, show me what you budget, and I'll show you what your priority is. I think we're going to have to put money against this, and the one way that we do it is that we establish a goal of integrating the e-campaign with our political department. Those two departments acting as silos, disconnected, is foolish. Secondly, I think we should establish a priority by creating the chief technology officer for the RNC, who will be responsible for integrating the RNC with the 50 states and the territories. And then lastly, and I think this is so important, we must commit ourselves to understanding that this is about not just high tech, but high touch. And the way that we do that is by making sure that at the end of the day, we're pushing this technology out to the 50 states and all the counties to get the job done.
Yeah, I think the most important part of this is a function of integrating the plan into the entire system. I think too often we have an e-campaign or a technology section and then and everybody else. And what really has to happen is everybody else has to be part of that. If we're going to enter the 21st century and basically compete with everybody else, I think we have to not only go into two-way communications, but this is going to be a function of networking. I mean, as somebody who actually uses this on a day-to-day basis and has integrated it across the country and across our state, what we've been able to do is basically create networks of people that are working together. I think if you take a look at the successes the Obama campaign had and the Democrats had, is they had organic organizations coming up in states that we never competed in before. So it's nice to talk about the technology, but unless you've actually used it and integrated it on a day-to-day basis and understand what it means, we need this to be part of everything we do, not just a certain section of what we do. And I think the way you do that is make it part of everything that we run as a party, because it will be the best way to network every single grassroots activist who wants to be part of the system.
Thank you. We and the 10,000 plus people on the site really appreciate your responses.
Okay. The fourth question comes from Patrick Ruffini, also co-founder of RebuildTheParty.com. Patrick. And goes to Mike Duncan to start.
Thank you. This was a question selected by the RebuildTheParty.com community, and it is, Democrats united around the Iraq War as a way to build a movement that eventually elected Democratic majorities in Congress and Obama president. What will conservatives unite around to build a movement that will restore our party to power?
I think there are many possibilities. I think we have to start with the recognition that the big issue of our times are jobs, jobs, jobs in the economy. And I think there's going to be a huge difference between the Obama billion-dollar gamble that he's putting out as a stimulus package right now and what we believe in, that you cannot tax your way out of a recession. So I think that's going to be an opportunity. Another opportunity I see is the fairness doctrine. I'm willing to put resources in immediately to strike down any attempt to create a fairness doctrine in this country. I think that there are going to be many, many different opportunities like that available for us moving forward. We just have to be vigilant every day, watching the Obama administration, holding them accountable, making sure that they live up to their promises. I find it amusing that some of the people now are wanting to take this whole thing of good government and not live up to the responsibility of being the loyal opposition. That's what we've got to do, and we can do that with our friends all over the country on the net and on the web.
I think the critical issue here is movement to what, and what is it based on? Right now you have Republicans scratching their head going, who are we? What do we believe in? What do we stand for? And I think you can look first to the platform of this party, which in my view is one of the best political documents that's been written in the last 25 years. It gives you a sense of who we are and what we believe. And you take that and you drill it down and you make sure people appreciate what this cause has always been about: the individual, the freedom, the choices, the responsibilities, the opportunities to strike whatever dream you want for yourself. My mama was a sharecropper's daughter who made $3.38, the most she's ever made in her life. Yet she watched her son become lieutenant governor of a state. And she's watched her son and her daughter do things in this America that denied her those opportunities. That's the movement I think we want to get back to creating. That's what Ronald Reagan moved us to realize our full potential and what we were about as Americans and as Republicans. I think you begin there, then the policies and the issues take care of themselves, because then you know what you're fighting for and why you're fighting.
I think it's where we're going to take the fight, too. We all are going to sound very similar on some of these questions, but the next fight for the Republican Party is the 36 governors' races that are up and 33 U.S. Senate races. We're going to have to take the fight back to the ground, and the members of the National Committee understand that and know that. And with that, with the Obama administration overreaching and overpromising and building a bigger government, we're going to have our opportunities in our states to elect some very responsible, conservative Republicans. And we're going to be able to elect them in places that people don't think it's possible. So I think they're going to give us a gift of an overreaching, overpowering government that will limit our freedom, that will limit our choices, whether it be in education or taxation, and that will give us an opportunity that I look forward to being a part of.
I think the opposition is establishing the agenda, whether it be card check, big budget, government, you name it, they're setting the agenda. We must be ready to respond effectively and decisively. It really starts with creating the technological framework. We must move voter vault to an open source. That would allow us to do more effective work at the grassroots level in the counties and in the states across the country. Look, my grandmother once said that she had a friend, I had an aunt on every stoop in every window of the housing projects in which I grew up in the early part of my childhood. The young people today have the internet. We had the auntie-net. Moved information just as fast. We must understand that this is not just about technology. This is about high tech and high touch. I'm going to be a leader that shows a competency in both high tech and high touch through effective communication and power sharing at the local level.
Yeah, I think if you look at where the conservative movement is going to go, or where the Republican Party in general will come back, I think we're going to find issues that will bring passion back to the fight. And the real question is, what is that going to be? I think one of the uniting factors for us will probably be something like a card check. The other one will be, clearly the Obama administration has promised tremendous increases in spending, which either they're going to pay for by higher taxes or bigger deficits. So I think they're going to create tremendous opportunities for us as a party and as a movement to get involved and to regenerate kind of the grassroots fundamental activists around the country. So whether it comes from there, and again, I agree with what Caton's saying on the governor's front. I think one of the most exciting things that will happen to us is that the governors are the future of our party. We will be running some of the sharpest people, some of the new young leaders of this country who will emerge also on the national scene by 2012 that will really be setting some of the agenda items that we'll be talking about. What is the Republican alternative? What is the conservative alternative to the things that Barack Obama and his administration propose? And I think most of those will come from the states.
I think to answer your question, simple: winners and losers. I don't think there's any doubt that the Obama campaign and Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid are going to overreach on several agenda items that will inspire us to get involved. But the fundamental difference that's going to happen over the next couple of years is the Obama campaign is going to decide who the winners and losers are in this country. Whether it's through a bailout or through higher taxes or through more government programs or through health care, they're going to make the decision for you whether you're a winner and loser. And in our party, we believe the exact opposite, that individuals have the ability to win or lose based on their own hard work or lack of work. And I think a challenge for us as a party over the next 2 years is to make sure the American public knows the difference, that at the end of the day, the Republican Party is going to stand for individuals making their own decisions and being successful on their own, or are they going to stand with the Democrats who are going to make all the decisions for you? It comes down to who decides who the winners and losers are.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 3 more questions with the lightning round. If we can start with Michael Steele and go around, are you pro-life?
Pro-life.
Yes.
Unabashedly pro-life.
Yes.
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 Do you support parental choice in education? Caton?
Absolutely.
Yes.
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 Absolutely got it passed in Maryland.
What was the biggest mistake of the Bush administration? Ken.
Pushing through the bailout, as I indicated before, I think that it will open the door to big government activism.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that big government conservatism was an oxymoron, and I think pushing more spending, greater deficits really damaged the brand for the Republicans and conservatives across the country.
I would agree with that and also say lack of communication.
Michael?
I think the prosecution of the war, I think the plans of the war and actually how it was implemented were two different things, and I think that we failed in the way originally that we were prosecuting the war.
Failure to communicate on the war, Katrina, the bailout. Yeah, we'll stop there.
Okay. Caden?
I'll go a little further back, and certainly this is our president. We all worked hard to get him elected.
Yep.
But I'll tell you, picking the issues early on, the Social Security debate and the immigration debate, and those were two that tore our party apart at certain times and cost us electorally. And those were things that not we disagree or agree, because those were solutions the American public was looking for from Republicans that we could not deliver that answer.
Okay. Fifth question was a popular question. Joe Sehusen, who worked with the Ron Paul campaign, asks, in light of the success of Ron Paul and the Campaign for Liberty attracting large numbers of activists to the Ron Paul campaign and to conservative causes, what have you done to reach out to Ron Paul voters, and what will you do as chairman to make sure that the Ron Paul voters remain or become Republican voters? I would add a number of people sent in similar questions that made the case that Ron Paul supporters were sometimes made to feel not terribly welcome when they showed up at Republican conventions and events. Michael Steele to start.
Well, I think that's the important point right there. How do we then begin to embrace those who were in this game with us all along? Ron Paul certainly brought a whole new generation of voters, and I think it's important going forward that we recognize the strengths and the attributes of these individuals who are out there actively building the party and building a movement, a consensus, if you will, on certain issues. So we can't look that in the eye and say, no, we don't want that. We need to find ways, creative ways, to work with their candidates that are running, to work with Ron Paul himself as a member of the United States Congress, and tap into those synergies where we are on the same page and can move forward together. Will there be disagreements? Probably. But that's part of this process of building and branding and moving forward. We cannot look at folks and say, well, you don't check off my litmus test of choices, and therefore I don't want any part of you. I think at this stage for this party, everyone who can help us should be brought into the room to help us.
Okay. As the party of Abraham Lincoln that grew on building coalitions, we too often have practiced the politics of subtraction and not addition. I witnessed early on the Ron Paul Army in South Carolina, early presidential primary. And I want people involved in my party that will hang off bridges and paint on their cars and make up T-shirts. There was a passion that I saw of those people for him and his ideas. Do we agree with all of them? No. But we're a party that has to embrace differences. And we become the party of addition. We start winning races, whether it be the city council races or the water commissioner races. But passion is what brought me to this party. Passion to win, passion to talk about things that were right, and talk in a tone that people understand and will embrace. Again, enthusiasm, you just can't have too much of it in a Republican Party.
Ken.
The corporate model, the model that's been used by the RNC now for decades, has outlived its usefulness. We are a federation which invites differences. Differences don't have to be deficits. And Ronald Reagan's principle of someone who agrees with me 80% of the time is my friend, not my enemy. We have to build coalitions. And we have to do this by really, like I said before, flattening the RNC, pushing responsibility and decision-making and resources outside of the Beltway. The RNC can no longer be a social club. It must be the flagship Republican organization in this nation, and I'm ready to give the leadership that will make that conversion.
I think this is not unlike 1988. You know, we had a very contentious primary with Bush, Kemp, and Robertson, and I happen to be one of the Kemp guys that was stuck in the middle when you took a look at what came to our party is we brought in a lot of new people, a lot of what is today referred to as a Christian right from the Robertson coalition. And those people who stayed made our party stronger, better, and bigger. And I think the same thing is going to be true with the Ron Paul people. And specifically, the question was, what do we do to reach out to them? I mean, I've actually gone out and met with their groups. I've gone to their picnics. I've gone and addressed the activists and said, be part of this. How do you become a precinct delegate? How do you run for county office and be a party officer? How do you become a delegate to the national convention? And I think it's an educational process because there is a lot of misunderstanding out there. I think you treat them like anybody else. If they want to be part of the Republican Party, if they want to participate, we have to welcome them in. And in Michigan, we have seen them being at the county convention level, at the state convention level, and showing up and participating, even sitting in on state committee meetings now. We have people actually come in just to listen, to learn, to be part of it. And if we welcome them with respect and with open arms, it will help grow our party.
Sure. I got to spend a lot of time with the Ron Paul people, obviously, in the early parts of the presidential campaign, and we actually shared office space on the same building in our Iowa offices. And they're exactly right. Lots of energy, lots of passion, inspired by a personality, brought a lot of people into that campaign. And that's what we've got to understand as a party, that we need all the voices from that campaign if we're truly going to be successful. And, Dr. Paul and I got to spend some time with him. We actually were in the same hotel for a couple of months. He is a wonderful man with wonderful ideas. Do we agree with him 100% of the time? Absolutely not. I've been involved in politics for 16 years. I've only found one politician I agree with 100% of the time, and that's me. Everybody else I'm going to have some disagreements with. And that's okay. And if we're going to truly be the majority party, then we've got to have room for disagreements and have room for conversations, but we've got to capture the energy of all those campaigns in the primary if we're going to be successful.
Mike.
My friend Lee Atwater, who was chairman of the party, used to talk about the party of the big tent. I believe that we are a party of addition. I think we've got to bring people in. The question was, what have you personally done? I personally have met with Dr. Paul on 2 different occasions. I talked to him about a list exchange where we could get his people involved, where we could communicate with them. I personally have treated his leaders of his campaign with respect. I've met with them. I personally treated his foot soldiers with respect, whether it was in our convention in Kentucky or whether it was the Republican National Convention in Minneapolis, St. Paul. That's the way we have to treat people and bring people in. I've been in this for a long time. Over the 40 years that I've been very active in politics, I've seen a lot of people come into our party. And you know what? We're better off for it. We have a lot of people who came in with very charismatic people over the years, and they're here and they make our party better today.
Thank you. We also had hundreds of votes for a series of questions on how icky do you think the Federal Reserve System is. We're going to stipulate for purposes of this debate that it's completely annoying, and move on to Mario Lopez, the president of the Hispanic Leadership Fund, who has a question. Mario.
Thank you, Grover. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. My name is Mario H. Lopez. I'm president of the Hispanic Leadership Fund. It's an advocacy organization dedicated to communicating conservative public policy solutions to the Hispanic community. It is estimated that in roughly 30 years, the United States will be a majority-minority country. 50,000 Hispanics turn 18 every month, and by 2050, 1 in 3 Americans will be of Hispanic descent. After significant gains with Hispanic voters, for example, President Bush earning 40 to 44% of the vote in 2004, harsh rhetoric from some Republicans and a general lack of a real, sustained commitment were large factors in dropping the GOP share of the Hispanic vote to 31% in 2008 and 27% in 2006. Given the demographic changes facing the country, do you agree with the notion that the Republican Party cannot be a governing majority ever again without expanding the base by bringing more Hispanics and other minorities into its ranks? If so, how do you plan to integrate these efforts into all aspects of party operations?
Kate, thank you. As my 2 competitors pointed my way. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, and thank you for the work you do for our party. I appreciate the discussions we've had. It goes back to the core problem of what our party stands for and what they're listening to. We have to increase not only the Hispanic base, but the Asian base, African American base, and all of Americans to the Republican Party to become the dominant party again. And we're going to have to elect and recruit more Hispanics. We're going to have to pay attention to what our party stands for at the grassroots. We are more consistent with that community because of our family values, our stance on school choice, and where we are as a party. But did they hear us in the last election cycle? much like the youth, where we lost the 66% of that vote went to Barack Obama. So I think it's more the tone we're talking to and the policies we embrace. We're a party that can't take any segment for granted any longer.
Chairman Dawson is absolutely right. We live in a country that is the most diverse democracy in all of human history, bar none. But we are a great democracy because we have a great Republican Party that believes in the sanctity of the individual, limited government, free markets, and the rule of law. I think it is very important that we take that message down to the most basic precinct level. It is a message that freedom-loving Latinos and African Americans will respond to. When we're showing that we're ready to stand up to the big unions that want to keep folks locked into public school reservations, or when they are opposed to portability and families being empowered with choice in health care, we win. But we have to show up and we have to place the order. It starts with a Republican Party that understands its future is tied to growing a new electorate.
I think we have to basically go into the communities and make sure that we make an effort to talk about what we as Republicans stand for. I think if you take a look at, and I think it doesn't matter whether it's the Hispanic, Latino community, whether it's the African American community or any other minority community, they share our values. They want safe streets the same way I want safe streets, or they want a good job for their children the same way I want to make sure my kids have a good job when they get out of school. So I think our values are the same. We just haven't done a very good job of articulating those values. I think tone and tenor matters. I think we represent we are looked at as being, to some degree, a party that is not friendly to minorities. And I think we have to make sure that we go out and reach out and walk into those communities and talk to people and let them understand that it's just not a whites-only party that the Republican Party is all about. I mean, in Michigan, we've actually elected in predominantly white districts, African-American, Hispanic, Arab-American members of the legislature. We probably have the most diverse Republican caucus in the country today. And it wasn't because we went out and recruited white, black, or Hispanic candidates. We recruited the best candidates who happened to be African-American or Hispanic, who ran on the same issues as every other Republican and won in Republican districts. And I think that kind of leadership, that kind of example is what we need to bring into the party.
Yeah, if we want to be in the majority, we have to. And I think you said it absolutely right. If it's going to be a majority-minority country. And I think as we look at what we believe as a party, it's what most minorities believe as a people. They want better schools for their kids. They want lower taxes. They want the opportunity to be successful. And we have done a very poor job in communicating any message from the Republican Party to those groups. The good news is there's a lot of room to grow for what we can do in that. The bad news is there's a lot of room to grow. And we have done a very bad job in communicating who we are and what we believe, not only to minority communities, but to the community overall in the United States. And I think that's one of the reasons we got beat so bad in this last election is our failure to communicate who we are and what we stand for is what we have to do.
Yes, to your question, if we don't do something about it, we're going to be the permanent minority in this country. The numbers are there. They're indisputable. It's the biggest opportunity and the biggest challenge that we have. I was so inspired this last weekend as I sat in Puerto Rico watching the inauguration of the new governor, Luis Fortunio. Luis, who is a member of our committee, someone that we know very well, ran a very conservative campaign in a state, a territory that has severe economic problems right now. But he said, we don't need these 11,000 new government employees put on by the opposition party. We can't tax our way to prosperity. We will have family values. Louis is the person that we should be emulating, and he is someone that I've recruited, part of my plan for many voices, many faces for the Republican Party moving forward.
I think the key to this whole thing is, get out of your comfort zone. We're just so comfortable talking amongst ourselves. I mean, how many state chairmen have actually gone to an NAACP meeting? How many know what the largest Hispanic organization is in their state? I'm not talking about you guys. Of course, their answer is yes.
You were just throwing them right Thank you. Give me two more.
Folks, this sounds so great. And for the folks out there watching this, how long have we been talking about this? When are we going to start doing it, for goodness sakes? This isn't anything any of us can do individually as chairman of this party. The state organizations where the rubber meets the road have to buy into this. They're the ones with the encouragement and the leadership at the national level to get it done. So, the bottom line is yakety yak, noise, until you actually do something. And when you show up at those meetings and you put in the face time and get outside your comfort zone, then you don't have to worry about having a Hispanic questioner come up and asking the question. Okay? Because it should be self-evident and answered already.
Thank you, Mario. A similar question was sent in by Terrence, who writes on Hip Hop Republican, a website I recommend to everybody. Hip Hop Republican, this classic rock Republican, intends to go visit. You can apply for classic rock. The eighth question. In 2002, Bob Riley, a Republican, was elected governor of Alabama. He was elected promising not to raise taxes. In 2003, he pushed for a $1 billion tax hike. The Republican Party of Alabama, led by chairman of the Republican Party, Marty Connors, actually led the opposition to the governor's tax increase. And when it was put up for a vote of the people of Alabama, the tax increase was defeated 68 to 32%. The Republican Party and the taxpayers won. Can each of you give an example of when, as a party leader, you have stood up against a Republican politician in your state or nationally that was working against Republican principles? Ken Blackwell.
I'll give you two. First, when George Fornovich was governor and leading an effort to increase the pop tax as treasurer of the state of Ohio, working with Americans for Tax Reform and NTU, we defeated that tax increase. I know how to work the grassroots. Let's be clear about something. When we are true to our principles, as we were in 1980, we win. When we have a candidate and candidates that are true to our principles, we win again in 1994. Ladies and gentlemen, it is very, very clear that authenticity matters. We can no longer afford to talk one way and behave in another. I want to lead, and I think that it starts with the RNC deciding that it's not just an appendage of the White House, because that's a losing strategy when you don't have the White House.
Yeah, I agree with what Ken's saying here. I think the hypocrisy, more than anything else, has killed our party. I mean, we started voting for the bridge to nowhere. We voted for larger taxes. We basically got caught up, and the American people came and looked to throw the bums out, and we had become the bums. And I think until we recognize that and are willing to stand up on principle, it's not going to matter. In Michigan, when they tried to pass the largest tax increase, we went out and raised money. We ran ads against the tax increase. They asked whether the Republican Party would support Republican candidates who were being recalled who voted for taxes. The answer was no. When they asked if we would support a tax increase, the answer was no. We took it to our state committee, had a unanimous vote of our state committee. We took it to the convention, we had a unanimous vote of the state convention. We weren't afraid as a party, as activists, to stand up and stand on principle and let the legislature know. And so when it ultimately came down, virtually every Republican voted for it, and virtually every Democrat voted against it, and every Democrat was forced to vote for it, as well as the lieutenant governor, the Democrat lieutenant governor, breaking the tie, and it helped reestablish our brand as Michigan Republicans being against higher taxes.
Chip.
You have to stand on principle. That's the most important. And I was elected chairman in December of 1998. In January of 1999, the Republican governor, again, my former boss, my mentor, a second father to me, tried to implement a state income tax in the state of Tennessee. We fought him tooth and nail to beat that back. He called me up every day just to yell at me how mad he was at me. They actually called the vote on the House floor when I was out of the country, and I had to fly 24 hours back to get there 15 minutes before the vote. A state trooper came and got me and blue lighted me back, knowing that if he got caught, he would be fired. And the speaker was in the well twisting arms. The governor was in his office twisting arms, and I was on the staircase making sure that Republicans and Democrats knew this was a defining issue for our state. It was a defining issue for our party. And you have to understand, you have to stand up when it's hard. not when it's easy.
Mike.
You asked for two examples, and I constantly think of the principles of the Republican Party embodied in our platform: lower taxes, less government, individual responsibility, and a strong national defense. And individually, over the years, I've stood up against political leaders in my state and sometimes political leaders nationally in different areas. Most recently, in this whole area of earmarks and the fact that we lost our way as a Republican Congress, that we got carried away with the power and we added way too much to the spending bills. In my home state, we have a member of the Appropriations Committee that I have argued sometimes against with the earmarks. We have another politician in my state who was against the flag amendment, and I stood up for the flag amendment because I think it embodies what's good and great about this country. We all have these points and times in our life that we have to make the decision: do you resign as a party official, or do you work within the system, or do you stand up and do what's right? And we make those decisions as Republican leaders.
When I ran for the U.S. Senate in 2006 from Maryland, certainly Katrina was a real significant and important issue to a lot of members of my community there. And I voiced an opinion that, how should we say, didn't go down too well at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And I got a number of phone calls on it. But the reality for me didn't change, is that decisions that we make as officials, certainly elected officials, do impact people's lives. And the minute we become disconnected from that, the minute we become detached from that, we lose our sense of purpose and direction in who we are. And so I wanted to remind the folks in my community that despite perceived or real ideas about what had happened in Katrina, that they knew that there would be a voice that would represent them consistently. And I think that's important for all of us as leaders of this party, hopefully, in some form or fashion, that we are consistent in who we are and what we state to the public about what we believe and where we're going, despite who may or may not be in the White House.
Okay. Grover, when I was elected 7 years ago as chairman of a party, I wasn't elected by sitting elected officials. I was elected by the activists on the ground. I think the crux of this question is does what your party say matters? Does it matter in the public policy arena? And it only matters when you're well organized and your elected officials hear you. We fought the battle on numerous fronts in our home state with the cigarette tax that they want to increase without a equal decrease on the other side. We fought reducing income taxes for the first time in South Carolina on small businesses. And the question there wasn't, are we going to do it, but how much are we going to do it? And every time our party has weighed in on public policy, what we say matters. And I think that's part of the debate as a party as we go forward is, what does our national party say, and will it matter? I think that'll depend on the leader that we elect to be the next Republican National Committee chairman.
Okay, next is a short yes or no question dealing with the Republican Party taking positions. In 1996, at the National Convention, the Republican National Committee adopted a resolution encouraging all Republican candidates to sign the Taxpayer Protection Pledge. That's the commitment to oppose and vote against any tax hikes. Will you, as RNC chairman, encourage all Republican candidates to sign the pledge not to raise taxes and to keep it? Saul?
Yes.
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 Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely, and I've done it as an office holder in every office that I've held.
Excellent. Question number 9.
You're not biased, are you, on this question?
I think it's a great question. Question number 9. The fellow who spoke loudly and memorably the evening of the Iowa caucuses in 2004 went on to become the chairman of the Democratic Party, and he implemented a 50-state strategy urging Democrats to compete in traditionally Republican states. Would you implement a 50-state strategy to compete in Vermont and California, as well as Texas and Idaho? And if so, how? Chip.
Yeah, instead of a 50-state strategy, I called it a blue state strategy, mostly because I know that Vermont's different than Texas. You mentioned Vermont. Vermont has a Republican governor, Republican, and lieutenant governor. The lieutenant governor is very unabashedly pro-life and proud of it and still leads the ballots in getting elected. I think what's important is for us is in all the states is to meet with their leadership and say, what do you need today to be successful in November 2010. It's great to get a check 60 days out. It's great to get a check 30 days out. But we need to start building the infrastructure and the foundation of all of our state parties today, knowing that at the end of the day, not every state is created equal when it comes to funding and which elections. We know that some governor's races are going to lead the way. Some Senate races are going to be the way. We have to target as a national party because we do have limited resources. But every state, if we're going to be the majority party, needs the basic infrastructure as we rebuild our party, and that's what I'm going to do over the next coming months.
Mike?
In my platform, I outline various things, including our victory plan. I don't call it a 50-state strategy, but I'm prepared, starting in February, to have people on the ground in all the states to do these things, to help us recruit candidates. Now's the time that we have to be doing that. To work on redistricting, the most important thing to us as a party over the next 10 years, and to make sure that we understand the needs of the state party on the ground in that state, and that we can relay those back and provide the services from the national party. There will be times that states will make requests that can't be fulfilled because you have limited resources. Even though we raised $400 million over the last 2 years and put over $110 million into state parties directly, that wasn't enough. We have to do more, and there have to be priorities given. But we will have boots on the ground under Project 2010 starting in February.
The key thing here is this is not about the national leadership, this is about the individual states. And if you want to start a 50-state strategy, you've got to recognize that you've got to empower the state parties to do that. That means getting their plan, buying into their plan, and helping them execute their plan, making sure it works. Boots on the ground is nice. It only works if it's their boots and not the RNC boots. We don't need someone from California telling folks in Iowa how to run their campaigns. It's always best to have people in Iowa do that. And so it's important to recognize the talent that's there, empowering the chairman and the leadership of the party on the ground to build from within. Every state, as been noted, is different. Everyone brings a certain dynamic to the play. Focusing on the East, for example, in the East Coast states is very different than how you would move about in the South. So understanding and appreciating three levels: the national footprint, the regional footprint, but most especially the state-by-state footprint is going to be paramount to building any strategy, whether it's a victory strategy or a 50-state strategy, if you don't look and understand exactly what is before you.
You're going to see part of all our plans no matter who you elect, because there's a piece in it that everybody has brought something new to the table. But what I can tell the Democratic Party is the Republican Party will be ready. There are people sitting in this audience like Murray from Indiana, Ron from California, Sue from Nevada, Cindy from South Carolina. Our party will be ready to go into battle in 2010. We will be ready, we'll be organized, and everybody here understands the commitment this stage has made to 3,141 counties. We will not get caught sleeping again. We as a party will be ready to go to battle against the Democrats.
Ken.
Since Chairman Dawson has indicated that we are going to see a little bit of everybody's plan and everyone else's plan, let me just tell you guys, you're going to be able to eat very heavily tomorrow. This is a plan that will put us back on the path of a 50-state strategy, including the territories. There is no vote in not one precinct that we should not go after. Ronald Reagan was fond of saying that the status quo is Latin for the mess that we're in. We're in a big mess, and it's time to restructure the RNC and to push power back in the hands of the state and county governments. I have laid out in this plan a 10% rebate for state parties, meaning that they get 10% of the money that they raise, that it doesn't come to Washington and disappear in some deep pocket. That's the way you begin to take action that is not just words, but actually followed up by behavior and leadership.
Saul.
Yeah, I absolutely think we need a 50-state strategy and something that addresses the issues obviously affecting all the territories. What I have proposed and the things that I've talked about with many of the members that are there is that we have to sit down with each and every state and territory and take a look at what are the needs, what are the objectives today. Each state will have unique needs. Each state has unique resources and unique opportunities. Some of them will be with respect to the presidential campaigns. Others are going to be governor's races. Others will be a state legislative race. And so I think what you have to do is address this very individually and very uniquely. There is no one plan, one shoe that fits all. We're not going to be able to just say, here, we're going to throw everybody X amount of dollars or a staffer. What we're going to have to basically do is say what California needs is going to be different than what Florida is going to need, or Michigan or Ohio. And as we take a look at where we're competing, as we take a look at where our challenges are going to be, I think having a 50-state strategy is critical. If you take a look where Obama caught us with our pants down in many ways, it's the fact that they did have a 50-state strategy. And all of a sudden, in states we never thought the Democrats would be competing in, they started being competitive. And I think that was should be a big wake-up call for us.
Okay, we're going to go to a couple lightning round questions, starting with Mike Duncan. Your favorite political website?
GOP.com.
Mike.
GoPack.org.
SCGOP.com.
Townhall.com.
That's all, folks.
ChipSaltzman.com.
Okay, do you use Twitter, and how many followers do you have? Michael.
I do, and the number is growing. The last time I checked, it was about 300-400. I'm not sure the exact number now.
Same thing, 300 or 400. We do. We're just not doing it today because you told us we couldn't.
Yeah.
It interferes with the mic, so that everybody can Twitter from where you are. Yes.
Yes, I do Twitter, but let me just say that I have 4,000 friends on Facebook. That's probably more than these two guys put together. But who's counting? You know.
I'll meet you on Facebook any day.
Yes, I do Twitter. I have probably just under 3,000 followers.
I do Twitter not near as much as Saul. I'm not sure all of us combine Twitter as much as Saul. I have a couple hundred followers.
Mike?
I do not Twitter, but I make available to all of you through www.gop.com the ability to Twitter. It's also on my personal website, MikeForChairman.com. And understanding the technology and using the technology are two different things, and I understand how to effectively use it.
Okay, Caton, are you on Facebook or MySpace, and how many friends do you have?
Facebook and several hundred.
I've already made the case for Facebook.
Facebook, and I'm somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000.
Facebook, and I think that...
Not at 4. Not at 4.
Facebook and about 700.
Personal blog and lots of followers during the campaign.
Facebook, about 2,000 to 3,000.
Okay. And you have a blog or a website that you would like to share with the world?
I have a website. It's www.steelforchairman.com. You can go on and see some of the neatest, hippest things to do on the web.
www.caton@catondawson.com.
KenBlackwell.com. But I also encourage you to go to the website of the Old New York Sun, the Washington Times, townhall.com, National Review Online. I write and have written for those organizations for a long time. My views are very clear.
I have a campaign website called newsisforchair.com, and I've been obviously writing a blog for the last 4 years personally that's called That's All Folks, and it's out there as well.
ChipSaltzman.com.
2 roles again today as chairman, GOP.com, where I have the blog that we used extensively throughout the campaign last year, and also now with MikeForChair.com. You'll see pictures and lots of different things.
Okay. There's a resolution that's being offered to the Republican National Committee criticizing the bailout that was done this summer for the banks, suggesting that it was criminally stupid. Is this vaguely worded? Is this a resolution you intend to vote for, or if you're not on the committee, would you support its enactment? Caton.
I think one of the crucial things that excites me is the committee is going to have a chance to vote on it and discuss it from all 50 states and 6 territories. I look forward to a spirited discussion about it. I certainly plan on voting for the resolution at this time, but I think it's a crucial point in our committee's life that we start weighing into public policy in a big way. Just like we said earlier, what your party says has to matter. And this is the process we use as a party to talk about issues that are near to us, because every one of us that's in the party, we're elected by Republicans, and we were elected back home. We weren't appointed. And we represent them, and we represent them responsibly. And I think I'm excited about the chance to listen to that debate at a meeting when our Republicans from all over the country are representing Republicans.
Okay. I'm sorry. This is lightning round. You plan to vote for it and or support it?
I support it, and I encourage you to read my latest column on townhall.com, Bush's Big Gambit, Big Government Gambit.
Yes, I plan on supporting it.
Yeah, this is, again, the decision winners and losers. This is something that's fundamental to us as a party.
Mike?
This is not the kind of question that I believe you can answer with yes or no. I've not found anything that I disagree, but as a banker, I think I probably understand this as well as anyone on the stage. I didn't take the TARP money. I resent the TARP money, and I think that there are problems in this whole area.
Bailout was a bust. It should never have happened. Republicans should have had a little bit more you-know-what to withstand the pressure. They didn't, and we're paying for it. Absolutely support the resolution because it reflects the frustration of our base.
Okay. Also, lightning round, so quick answers. Saul, in the past, the National Party has not always been excited when state chairmen get together to discuss best practices. As chairman looking forward, is this something that you'll encourage the party chairman, committeemen and women, and executive directors to meet and do work on best practices meetings?
Yes, as someone who organized the first meeting, I think it was a very good idea.
Would encourage it.
I'll institutionalize it.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Did it this morning.
Yes.
Okay. And at this point, we're going to go around and do 1 minute closing conversations, 1 minute to summarize your campaign, your argument for your race, and start with Chip.
Well, we've had a great 90 minutes to talk about the future and vision of our party from a lot of good folks. I've always said that this election it's not about the heart and soul of our party, it's about the heart and soul of our country. And I've never said that I was running against any of the folks up here. I always say I was running with them. Because I know as the future of our party, there are lots of voices that need to be heard, and there's lots of opportunities for us to grow. There's not a person up here that's perfect, and if you're looking for a perfect candidate, I'm certainly not it, and I wouldn't suggest you vote for me if you think I am. But I think we have offered a vision. I think I've offered a vision today that will show you what direction I'm going to take this party. It's going to be high energy. It's going to be taking it straight to the Democrats. We know at the end of the day what our job is. It's to win elections. It's to beat Democrats. It's to talk about policies and positions that we are. It's not about personalities. And if we're truly going to be successful and move back into the majority status in this country, we have to make sure that our magic of this party, which comes from the states, is celebrated. That this is a party about individuals, not about big government. This is a party about you. This is a party about me. And if we're going to be successful, that's what we'll get back to. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, Grover, and I appreciate any support that y'all have to offer. Thank you.
Mike Duncan.
Grover, thank you very much. And speaking to the members of the RNC, this is about the future of the party. This is also about you. I've been involved in this party since I was 9 years old. I believe that I understand the difference between when we have a White House and when we don't have a White House. I believe that I am best positioned on day one to move the party forward because of that understanding and experience that I have. But I can't do it without your help. This is a bottom-up party. It works the very best when we implement the plans that are in my platform for the RNC. We've got to have your involvement. I ask you to join me in that journey, to be more involved in your state, to be involved at the national level, to be one of the members of the committees that we're going to use to govern and hold accountable the RNC. Please join me in that journey, and thank you for the opportunity of being with you today.
Michael Steele.
Thank you, Grover. To my friends of the GOP, our base, our core, the rock of this party, I thank you for your leadership. I thank you for the opportunity to have served as a county chairman, as a state chairman, as lieutenant governor of my state. As a young 17-year-old, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up politically. And I was moved by the wisdom of an Abraham Lincoln, and I was just excited by the pragmatism of a Teddy Roosevelt, but especially inspired by the rhetoric and the words and the reality of a Ronald Reagan. And that spirit of who we are as Republicans is still out there. And I think it's important that the next leadership of this party capture that spirit and fire up again our base. We've got a long haul ahead of us, yes, at building and strengthening ourselves. But I'm here to tell you, folks, the glass is half full. We may have spilt a little bit along the way. But as chairman of this party, I'm hoping to work with each one of you, grassroots, state chairman, party leadership, to keep us strong and moving us forward. And I thank you for your consideration and your vote.
Kate and Dawson.
Apologize for our back being to you. That's why I'm up. Again, to the members of the Republican National Committee, thank you for the journey. Most of you know me, but I am Caton Dawson. I'm the grandson of a welder and the grandson of a lady who sold hats in a department store. My dad took a Nazi bullet in his left leg and North Korean shrapnel in his right leg, and we've been Republicans the whole time. I understand what it takes to win. I understand what it takes for the people who we meet as a committee in the cafeterias and the gymnasiums and on the street corners. I think our party understands that what we say is going to have to matter for the next 4 years. That what we do as Republicans is going to have to matter, and how we organize. So the excitement that's coming from this entire team is all about the tangible results of can you win, have you won, do you have the experience, and what you say, will it matter? And I think that's what we bring to this. Again, for the committee, thank you for being here, and it's a pleasure serving with you.
Ken Blackwell.
My plan for a conservative resurgence advocates a shareholder revolt. It advocates an entire new way of the RNC doing business. It advocates major change in ownership. RNC members are elected by the grassroots. This represents a shareholder revolt. Grassroots of our party are the principal owners, the principal shareholders. We've been sent here to do a job, and that is to give the party back to them, to reestablish authenticity, to hold people accountable for a platform that I had the good fortune of being a vice chairman for its construction. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm asking the 168 members of the RNC for their vote, but I am also advocating to return the party back to its grassroots, its rightful shareholders.
Saul.
Well, we've got a great history as a grand old party, but I really think the opportunity for us is going to be as the grand opportunity party for the future. We basically have to take a look at the different kinds of constituencies that we need to win back to become a majority party again. I have not been a lifelong Democrat or Republican. I actually became a Democrat or Republican during my high school years and took a look at the opportunity society that Republicans offered. Guys like Jack Kemp and Newt Gingrich and Ronald Reagan inspired me to be a Republican. And if you take a look at the constituency that we're losing today, it's the Reagan Democrats. It's the independent voters. It's the suburban voters in neighborhoods like mine. The high school football games that I go to with Catholic Central High School on Friday nights and then end up at church on Sundays. And these are the people we're losing today. And I think we need somebody who understands those issues, who's come from that background, who can appeal to the immigrants, who can appeal to the classic working class America, middle America. Somebody that can pull up on a Harley and say, we're part of you. It's a different kind of Republican Party, and it's okay to be a Republican again. And if you take a look at the conservative principles we stand on, they're winning principles if we act like Republicans again. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Michael Steele, Caton Dawson, Ken Blackwell, Saul Anousis, Chip Saltzman, and Mike Duncan. One of these gentlemen is going to lead the Republican National Committee for the next 2 years. This is the most important decision that the Republican Party will make until they pick a presidential candidate in 4 years. The gentleman who becomes the chairman will be spending hundreds of millions of dollars. They've outlined programs about how to reach out to all 50 states. They're going to be making those decisions on resources, on new technology, on being an inclusive party. This decision will be made on the 28th of January as the RNC meets. There are 168 RNC members who are voting. I hope every active Republican knows his party chairman and his or her party chairman, committeemen and women, and speaks to them about the race. This is being taped. It's being live streamed from rncdebate.org, and we'll continually make it available in the future. All parts of it are available to all the candidates if you want to share it as YouTube. This really is the beginning of winning the House and Senate back, the presidency back, getting a majority of governorships and state legislators, and we are all looking right now at the person who's going to be doing that over the next 2 years. I'm delighted at the level of interest that this campaign has gotten. The party, the movement, and the country understands the importance of the decision that the Republican National Committee is going to be making. And we'll be back here in 2 years, and we'll do this again. Thank you. Thank you.